Okay, that was really lame and somewhat annoying. We had like 20 or so people on here, and then the whole YouTube just decided to freeze, which has happened many times, unfortunately, throughout a few of my streams. I don't know why it just decides to freeze in the middle of the middle of using this thing. The whole screen will just lock up, which is really lame. So YouTube, you really need to fix that bug because I'm not cool with having my streams just interrupted like that. It's kind of weak sauce. So my apologies for that technical delay. I don't know what YouTube's deal is and why they want to just have the screen freeze, but I don't really remember what I was saying at this point. So I guess that's the end of that whole it's the end of that lecture, I guess. So I'll answer questions now for a bit, and we'll wait for people to trickle over here. So if you have questions, start rolling them through and I'll start answering, because I lost my train of thought and I was pretty much done, I guess. Where do you find the memes in your thumbnails? I just have a meme collection on my phone that I use, so I'm not sure. People send them to me, or I just have a good collection, I guess. But I can't reveal my sources. But they are good memes, I agree. Still just kind of whack that YouTube froze in the middle of my stream. Yeah, have you read Sutra of Patanjali? Yeah, I read those quite a lot back in the day when I was doing lots of yoga and meditation. I guess it's good, but I think the sutras are pretty irrelevant and out of touch and out of reach for basically everyone. But it is at least a historical artifact to shed some light on what yoga perhaps was at one point. But I don't think it's particularly relevant to modern people, because what it's talking about is so far out there. Then, yeah, I think it's maybe cool for an intellectual endeavor, but I don't think it offers a lot of practical value for people, because I don't think literally anyone is actually doing yoga. But I talked about all that in my meditation video in good detail, I think. It's just kind of the unfortunate truth about all this stuff is what people think they're doing and what they're actually doing oftentimes don't line up. So to say someone's doing yoga is not an accurate statement. What they're doing is stretching and breathing, or just gymnastics, or trying to sort out their self-worth issues. I mean, it depends, but usually it's those things. Let's see. What's your view of psychotherapy? Honestly, it's one of those things that kind of just depends on the practitioner. It's a tool like many tools, and a tool is only as good as the person using it. So, it's difficult to blanket an entire industry and put an evaluative statement on an entire field. But I guess I will. I say in many ways that they are very juvenile, and I wouldn't even say juvenile, infantile, in their actual understanding of what is a person. They don't really got that dialed in. What is the functional process of life? They don't really got that dialed in. How do those things interrelate with a wider sphere of the human plane? They don't have that dialed in. What does it mean to be a human? What is a normal, healthy human? Like all these basic fundamental questions, they're not even close to even really asking, much less even answering. Granted, that's a pretty far out point of view, because there's obviously a much more functional human to human aspect of it that's more relatable and tangible, but is also informed by those questions and informed by those axioms, so to speak. But I think in many ways, the APA and all these other things are just probably out to lunch. There's a lot of just scam and nonsense within the industry, but it's because that's what people learn. That's what they're indoctrinated with, because that's what the basis of the system is, because that's their view. It's reflected because that's their view of humanity. That's their view of life, which is usually pretty gross and dim and morbid and salvational. And it's evidenced because it'll either be that extreme or it'll be some other hodgepodge version of something a little bit new agey or pseudo-spiritual. Or the flip side will be something like some rehashing of Buddhism with some reincarnation, pseudo-spiritual nonsense, because they don't really understand that tradition either. So they have like a infantile understanding of their tradition, and they try to meld it with some other tradition, and it just is like laughable. But people are trying. But of course there are, more cognitive behavioral therapies and neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis and somatic therapies and things like that, which are obviously helpful and useful for people. And again, long story short, it just comes down to the quality of the practitioner, ultimately. Because the modality is oftentimes secondary. It just depends on the person and their relationship. What does it mean to be grounded? How to describe that? I think part of it is your nervous system is calm and relaxed. And I would say part of it is your mind and your body are on the same page. They're not pretty separate, because usually people's minds are way somewhere else. They're living in 12 layers deep of fantasy and delusion and imagination, all types of stuff. But that's usually different than what their body is actually doing. And to me, that's not grounded whatsoever. So to me, I guess grounded is having your mind and your body actually on the same page. Your nervous system is in a state of relative calm, relative comfort, ease, feeling okay, natural, at home. That's probably what I'd say. An ability to be really actually present and listen and hear what people are saying without a lot of distortion and bias, because you can never not have any distortion or never not have any bias, because who we are is bias. Who we are is subjective. Like, it's just part of being a person, is having biases and all these things. That's just called your personality. Your personality is just a fucking bias, ultimately. So when people get really obsessed with like trying to be as non-offensive as possible, or as objective as possible, or nice as possible, it's pretty gross, actually. It's really unpleasant to be around and unpleasant to deal with, because it's so false and phony, and it's ultimately so unhealthy for them and for everyone around them. So hopefully that gives you some idea about what I think grounded is. But I think ultimately being grounded and centered and rooted is like really important. What do you believe you're addicted to in a positive way? Physical activity, reading about a certain subject. How do you know this is addiction to continue to serve us in a positive way? I don't know. I think we're all addicts. We're all habituated, let's say. I mean, addiction is kind of a strong word. But I would say below that, we are all habituated. We are all conditioned. We are all mechanized. We are all operating in complex webs of cause and effect. We're all the results of a bunch of causes, and we're creating our own causes and results subsequently. That's just part of being a human being and being alive, is all of those things being implied. So that's just part of the natural state of things. To say that we're addicted, that becomes a bit stronger of a term, because sometimes you could be obsessed, sometimes you could be driven, Sometimes you can be dedicated. Sometimes it's purpose, it's mission, it's meaning. And then there's the element of relativity, because one person might think they're obsessed or addicted or dedicated because they do something for like 20 minutes 3 times a week. To me, that's not really anything. But another person might do that 8 hours a day or 4 hours a day for 5 days a week or whatever. So it's relative in that sense. But then another person might say 8 hours, that's it. I do it 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like, oh. So it really starts to depend on what the context is and what we really mean. I guess part of what we could understand is looking at the outcomes, meaning is it's improving your life and not having negative side effects, meaning undermining your physical and emotional well-being, harming your relationships, harming other people. I mean, if obviously you're doing something that you think is positive, but it's actually hurting yourself, making your relationships worse, and then you're probably like, yeah, this is maybe not a good thing. But then there is, again, examples where that's not true. You look at entrepreneurs or people, anyone who's done anything great, oftentimes there's casualties, there's, collateral damage along the way, unfortunately. So it kind of just depends. But I think in general, my general view of people is, I think in general we could all use more strength, more dedication, more focus, more purpose, more meaning in our lives that we have perhaps chosen for ourselves, not just been abdicated or inherited from other people or through just brainwashing or programming. To me, I think those are meaningful and valuable and useful things. And I think that's where empowerment comes from. Because if you don't have those things, you're not really empowered. You're kind of just, floating along. And unfortunately, strength, power, meaning, purpose, unfortunately are somewhat demonized qualities. And oftentimes what people think is better is just like, don't have strong opinions, don't have strong views, see the relativity in everything. Everything's relative, everything's this and that, or don't be too much, don't offend anyone, don't hurt anyone's feelings. All this just homogenized nonsense, that just creates really boring, uninteresting people, and then who lead boring, uninteresting lives, and then subsequently outsource those things to media, to the marketing machine, and then that machine feeds on that inner lack, and then that creates an economy that is never ending and will never be satisfied because that person is choosing to live in that way, either consciously or not. So I think if you actually can start to look at those qualities, look at those things in our own life, define them for ourselves, reflect upon them, see what those relationships actually are, then that it can be very healthy and beneficial and can make people more interesting, more passionate, more enthusiastic, more vital, more just engaged in life in general. I think in many times people should be a bit more engaged, more inspired, more motivated, more just interested in things. Because if you have meaning and purpose and dedication and something of that nature, then a lot of things kind of take care of themselves. And it's just a really important thing. And then, you're saying the opposite, where people just believe that they are their beliefs and close their mind to anything other than they believe. Yeah, I mean, that's, again, very rigid and boring, honestly. It's just boring, uninterested people, because you can talk to them for a few seconds and then almost elicit their entire belief system and repeat it back to them almost. And it's very uninteresting and boring. It's very low quality interaction, let's say. But let's see, I think there might have been another question in there. What do you believe you're addicted to in a positive way? I don't know, again, if I would say addicted, but definitely my business, my training, aspects of self-improvement, self-actualization, tea, incense, like these types of things that I'd say I'm just addicted to being interested and passionate and learning about things, which that's changed over the years, and it can vary between what that is, but definitely addicted to that. And I think it has mostly been a positive thing in my life, and I feel happier and healthier. So I would kind of recommend that for everyone, because you could be addicted to something that will inspire you and motivate you, or you could just be addicted to like House of Cards or Netflix or cupcakes. Like that could be your addiction. Like, oh, every day I just gotta get my cupcake. And that's what you live for, or people who smoke cigarettes. They hate their job, they hate their life, but oh, this cigarette is gonna give me everything that I need. It's like kind of, I don't know, but I mean, I've been there. Like just last night I was talking to someone about all just the terrible jobs that I've had in my life and how much they have all really sucked. And just, I mean, I started working when I was like 12 or 13. As soon as it's like maybe 7th grade, summer of 7th grade, I started working. I think I had like 2 jobs. And then every summer had multiple jobs. And then even like the end of high school, I was going to high school during the day, working almost full time and doing sports. And then in college, same thing. And none of my jobs were particularly good. They all sucked. So I completely understand hating your reality, hating your life, dreading what you have to do, dreading you have to wake up early and go to something that you don't like, with people that you don't like, doing things you don't like, to make not very much money, just so you can wake up and do it again the next day. Like, I'm very familiar with that reality. Did it for almost 10 years, I guess. Less than that, somewhere around 10 years, I guess. So I understand. And then I understand what it's like to want an escape or want other things or whatever. It's just, yeah, so when all the things I'm saying are from a lot of experiences. I'm not just saying hypothetical, fluffy nonsense. This is all very time tested. Let's see. Next question. How much did you practice today? I don't think I did actually at all, because I did yesterday for a few hours, and then I got a little bit of body work last night, working on my cranial nerves and cranial flow. And then had acupuncture at like 10 a.m. So I pretty much just woke up, worked, had breakfast, and then went to my appointment. I had to leave at like 9:30. I got out of there at like 11:30. And then just kind of took it easy for a few hours, cooked some lunch, went for a walk. That's pretty much it. Just kind of been taking it easy. I'll probably train tomorrow. But I was doing some lymphatic drainage on myself and some stuff to relax and stimulate my vagus nerve, which was pretty cool. And I just been playing around with it. Like when I go to bed for the past few nights, I'll just spend, I don't know, however much time just doing lymphatic stuff on my head or on my organs. And it's made a big difference, actually, like a really, 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 really big difference. So highly recommend that stuff. And it's great because I can do it to myself. I don't have to pay someone necessarily for it. So that's mostly what I did today. Just chilling, resting in it, because I had a pretty solid acupuncture session. So tomorrow I'll definitely, I don't know if I'll train for a little bit or just go for a hike all day. Something like that. Let's see. What kind of incense do you recommend and what from sources? Basically, the incense I use is stuff that I sourced myself directly from people that are making it by hand, and I'll be selling it very soon. So I get my incense from myself, I guess. Do you still do float tanks? I haven't done a float tank in probably like a year and a half. I just kind of got over it, kind of got bored, and honestly, sometimes it just made me feel worse afterwards. I didn't have the best experiences sometimes. So I would, so if you look up, so is the lymphatic stuff just like self-massage? I mean, it is self-massage, but it's not self-massage. It's very light. It's very light pressure. It's not anything rough. It's honestly almost to where you don't feel anything. Like the less you feel is honestly more correct. But if you look up this guy, Motivational Doc, he has a bunch of videos for like releasing your head or releasing your sinuses or stimulating your lymphatic system. And then look up Stop Chasing Pain. Go to stopchasingpain.com, sign up for this dude's membership site, because it's incredible. There's so much self-care type stuff that you can learn on there in terms of releasing all types of things. So look up Motivational Doc on YouTube. He has a bunch of videos for free. It's definitely cheesy and hokey, and the guy is really kind of uncomfortable to listen to sometimes, but his content's good, and you just can get the techniques and then just do them. And then Stop Chasing Pain. That guy is solid. I think I'm going to be on his podcast pretty soon, actually. Let's see. Go back and see if I missed a question. Do you attend a gym? Occasionally I'll go to a gym and use the ellipticals, but basically that is the extent of it. Is reishi always calming even if you've had a serotonin syndrome before? Probably. I mean, Chinese medicine isn't necessarily working on the neurochemical model, but also just kind of depends on what you mean by serotonin syndrome, and then depends on who's reishi and what kind of the quality basis that it is. But most likely, I think it would have that effect. Even if it doesn't necessarily calm you, it's still going to do a lot of good things for your immune system, supporting energy levels. Like reishi does a lot of things. Is CBD oil overpriced? Honestly, I think the vast majority of it is overpriced and kind of garbage. I mean, just like, because I sell it. You know, I have my HyperionHemp.com website, so I'm doing 900 milligrams for $75, which I think is a really good price relative to the market. And especially the quality basis of it is head and shoulders, light years beyond what most people are selling, because most companies are selling literally the exact same thing. They're buying a pure CBD isolate from China, from Germany, from Holland, somewhere. Or they're sourcing it, from America, but still it's a 99% or 97% CBD isolate. So it's basically exactly the same because it's literally just one thing. It's just that isolate chemical or few chemicals. So there's not really much variation or it lacks personality, let's say, which is why people are like, well, we add terpenes back. We do nano emulsification. We do this and that, trying to basically prop up what I label as an inferior product. But if you look at HyperionHemp.com, I think the price is good for the quality and the potency, because that stuff you only need a few drops. Do it sublingually under the tongue, swish it around for a while, and it gets in very, very quickly. So I like that one, and I recommend it, which is the whole basis for reason why I started selling it in the first place. But I honestly avoided it for quite a long time because I thought the industry was too hypey and too kind of cheesy and hokey. So Yeah. Do you take CBD every day? I don't anymore, but I used to for year and a half maybe. I took it pretty much every day. Only a few milligrams, but that was all I needed. I would take a few milligrams. It gave me the feeling that I wanted, and that was it. But then, I don't know, 3-4 months, I have really had no craving for it. And even if I take it, I don't really notice a lot from it anymore. So I don't really do it anymore. But I still think it's great, and I think it can help a lot of people. And I get good feedback all the time from clients about the Hyperion hemp product. What do you think about turmeric powder or tea? Well, I think turmeric isn't that absorbable in those forms. You'd probably be better off cooking the powder with food. So you get the cooking and then you get the oil mixed in to help with the digestion of it. Turmeric tea, I mean, I think it's tasty for sure. I mean, you can do golden milk or golden chais or things like that. It's definitely, great thing to include in your diet, absolutely. Let's see. What's your opinion on cacao? I mean, I think it's cool. I don't really like chocolate anymore. I don't really mess with it. So I just don't have an appetite for it anymore, but I, think it's a cool thing. And people should eat it if they want, but I was just really deeply into it for like 5-6 years. And then ever since then, I've just kind of don't really like chocolate anymore, to be honest. I don't really eat sweets either. And even if I may have made a chocolate drink the other day. Well, no, I had this roasted maca blend that had a little bit of cacao in it, but I don't sweeten anything. I don't, like, even when I would make a coffee, I don't sweeten it. Or if I make an herbal drink, I don't sweeten it. It's just what it is. I don't really care for sweetener. I don't use stevia. I don't use anything like that. So opinion on dragon herbs supplements. I mean, I think some of their stuff's pretty good. Some of it's just kind of like whatever. Some of it, I think, like their ginsengs, for example, aren't. All I'll say is, my friend who I get ginseng from that I used to sell on my membership website, I had a bottle of the Dragon Herb's most expensive wild ginseng product, and he wouldn't even touch it. He wouldn't even smell it. He was personally offended by the quality of it. So that's all I'll say about that. But otherwise, I think they have good stuff, and it's fine. But obviously I have my own company, so I'm biased towards my own stuff, as people should be. Do you think you could describe the feeling of CBD? Yeah, go to HyperionHemp.com, and I wrote the description of the feeling of CBD on there, I'm pretty sure. Or at least the description of the feeling from my product. So, do you think you can describe it? Yep, I definitely already did. And it's on the website, so just HyperionHemp.com, you can read it. And there it is. Chocolate, too stimulating or overkill? I mean, depends on for who. For me, I just don't particularly enjoy the flavor of it. I don't have an appetite for it, but I don't find it stimulating or overkill. Some people might find it stimulating. Kind of depends on their wiring, I would say, or their metabolism. But I just don't have an appetite for it, really. So, I mean, if I did, I would eat it, but I just kind of don't. But I think a little bit every now and again is healthy. I mean, it's a superfood, let's say. And I think it's good to have some plant stimulants in our diet in some fashion. Not to say every single day. I mean, but that's fine too, I guess, depending on what it is. But sometimes is good. Have you heard of black seed oil? I have heard of it because it's just cumin. It's just black cumin oil, cumin seed, which is delicious. It's fun, excellent to cook with. Highly recommend it. Tastes great. But the black seed oil I've not really played with. I thought about using it in my tooth oil, but it kind of ruined it, and it was a little too harsh. So I have a bottle of it that I was going to use internally for the tooth oil, but I just kind of forgot about it. And it's just another one of those things that's like trendy, and it has a bunch of benefits, allegedly, that people claim it as a miracle thing, but I'm not in that world. I mean, I guess I am because I have an herb company and whatnot, but I don't keep up. But I hear about these things because, I'm in the industry, so I'm on a bunch of email lists from suppliers and manufacturers and wholesalers and all these things. So, I'll get the emails. Oh, hemp's going to be the biggest thing. Explore our line of hemp products. And then it's like black seed oil. It's going to be the next thing. Like, here's our line of products. You should start selling it now. And there's nothing wrong with that because, I'm sure it has some benefit, but I just don't live my life that way. I don't run my business that way. I don't follow trends or things of that nature. So I just don't really keep up. And I think it's probably overhyped, and it's just kind of like, give it a year or two and everyone will forget about it because they'll be the next thing. It's going to be the miracle. Which is pretty much why one of the major criticisms that the outside world has for this industry is just how hypey and trendy it can be, where like, it was moringa, that was the miracle thing, and then now it's black seed oil, but then it's going to be the next thing, and they're just kind of like, oh, it's always the next miracle, cure-all, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of gets old after a while. Just like with the conspiracy world, there's always the next thing that's, oh, this is going to happen on this date, and this astrologer, and this numerologer, and then we cross-reference it with these ancient texts, and all these synchronicities, and all these symbolisms, and all these things going to happen. Does it ever happen? No. Has it ever happened? Probably no. What's their percentage rate success-wise for predicting it? It's probably 0. Are they going to still keep doing it? Yeah. Is anyone going to notice or remember that for 10 years they've been saying 100 things that were going to happen, but none of them did? No one remembers somehow. So I was tried to be in that world for a short space of time, and that quickly became apparent that was what people were doing. And I'm like, wait, the guys have already said these like 10 things and none of them have happened. So you guys are cool with just this nonsense. Like, the world out here is all lies and they're lying to you, but like, you guys are just lying to yourselves. So I'm just going to leave, I think. I think there's the door. I'm just going to leave that aspect of it, and I'm just not really into it. So I feel like the supplement industry, it's like that, probably just because that's how people work. It's just a reflection of people's mindset. What is your opinion on Alan Watts? He actually talks about self-improvement, one-upmanship, self-destructive habits of people wanting to improve and be better. Honestly, I would throw away the vast majority of what Alan Watts said. He didn't really know very much, and he's wrong about mostly everything he said about Eastern traditions. And but for purely entertainment value, the guy was a great orator. He was charismatic. He was entertaining. He introduced foreign things to people, but I don't put any weight in anything that he's said, and it doesn't really have any validity because he just made the same silly mistakes that all the other people from that time frame did, and people are still making. So I'm not really a fan, and I would probably just forget most of what he said, and we'd all probably be better off because it just creates more confusion in the long run. Let's see. Do you use any designer probiotics or specific strains? Thoughts on topical probiotics for skin? No, I haven't really messed with the probiotics much lately. They honestly never did much for me past a certain point. They wouldn't have much effect, if any, on my digestion or my gut health. But if I did, I'll eat sauerkraut pretty regularly, and that has a lot of probiotics. I do the Farmhouse brand, so it's pretty potent. But that's pretty much the extent of it. T for gynecomastia. Is that like man boobs, I guess, or excessive tissue mass around the breast region? I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I don't know. It kind of depends on the causal. I feel like you've asked this question before in one of the other live streams, or maybe I'm just having deja vu, but it kind of depends on the causal relationship. It could be, from a Chinese medicine perspective, a dysfunctional spleen stomach thing. So it's like your body's not metabolizing fluids, so they accumulate. It could be an estrogen dominance or low testosterone, low androgen levels. So it kind of depends on the underlying cause to depend on the recommended course of action. But definitely like exercising regularly, getting the sweat going, keeping your blood moving is obviously good. If it's caused by exhaustion or fatigue, then that is another thing that would have to be addressed. But then let's say it is caused by estrogen dominance or estrogen accumulation, then there's things like DIM, diindol methane, things like pine pollen, things like nettle root that can help restore actual androgens and help escort the excess estrogens out of the body. So those are some things that come to mind. I wouldn't necessarily say like a tea or a specific herb, but those genres of things, also like infrared saunas, lymphatic drainage therapy, lymphatic drainage massage. There's people who do those treatments and they lose a lot of weight or they lose a lot of size and mass very, very quickly. It's really popular for women who want to, some women will lose a waist size or two in like a treatment or a very short space of time. Like it's crazy stuff. So probably would examine those aspects of stagnation and metabolic deficiency. What do you do to prepare a whole astragalus root? You need to do a decoction. Break it up into pieces, boil it in water for 20 minutes, and that should be good. What's your diet like nowadays? Pretty simple. I'll walk you through my diet today so far. Breakfast, I had some leftover rice bowl because it basically just had some veggies, a little bit of rice, and the sauce, which is mostly why I used it. And then I cooked potatoes, carrots, celery, and watermelon radish. Then I sauteed that stuff together. Then I think I sauteed some firm tofu, speaking of estrogen. And then I sauteed a couple eggs, and that was breakfast. Then for lunch, I took the leftover veggies and tofu. Then I took bone broth and coconut milk and some curry paste. Cooked that all up, put some rice noodles in there, and that was lunch. And honestly, that's probably what I'll have for dinner. Again, is just the leftover soup and noodles, and that's pretty much it. That'll be the day. Everything I'll eat today. Yesterday, what did I have? Oh, I guess last night I had a wok or a rice bowl with just like veggies, rice, a little bit of beef. Lunch was a falafel pita wrap with like hummus and cucumbers and falafel. Breakfast was, I think, vegetables and meatballs. And that was it. So pretty, and then past that, I don't really remember. So pretty simple, pretty basic stuff. Nothing too crazy. Let's see. Opinion on Sustanche. I don't think Sustanche is really like a super tonic herb. It's definitely great in formulas. They're great for kidney yang, But I mean, it's safe standalone, but I wouldn't put it up there with like reishi or cordyceps or something. But you can definitely use it adjunctly with other things. But its benefits and its application is pretty narrow. It's basically like libido, kidney yang, case closed. So if that's what you need, if you're a middle-aged man or something, or someone that's older in life that needs help with their kidney yang, then probably useful. Is lion's mane good long term? Yeah, I think so. I would say all the mushrooms are pretty good long term, whether it's cordyceps, reishi, lion's mane, chaga, etc. You know, you can also just eat lion's mane as a food, and it's great. It's one of those things that's part food and part herb, or herb, let's say. Which is better, krill oil or fish oil? Honestly, I think neither, because if you look up, I think it's called yellow fat. There's all this other research that's come out in recent times basically saying that supplementing all this stuff with omega-3s is actually harmful and causes more disease than it prevents, and is actually a big misstep by the industry. But I think it was called yellow fat or something like that. So I don't know. I've never really I've supplemented with those things in like 5-6 years ago, but it's been quite a long time. Are you a fan of matcha? Not really. I think I had a short phase. But the problem with matcha is once it's in America, the quality is really, 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 really diminished. In terms of it loses a lot of vibrancy and all the top notes, which is a green tea, so you want the vibrancy, you want the top notes. That's what you're going for. And then one of my friends is what I would consider an expert on many things, but one of them being Japanese tea. And I let him try and see and sample all the best stuff that I could find in America, and he basically said all of it was trash. Even some stuff that was like $400 an ounce or something like that. He was like, I mean, it's kind of better, but it's still not good. Granted, he's used to the fresh stuff in Japan, but I'm just not really a green tea type fan. I mean, I think to me, it's like a snack. Like, if I'm at a Japanese tea house and I get like a fruit and nut cake and then have it with some matcha or hojicha, then that's cool. But it's not something that I think that I'm that interested in or that I take that seriously. I prefer more like traditional Kung Fu style with more aged teas. But in the summertime, you know, definitely a matcha could be nice, or a green oolong or things of that nature. But again, there's a lot that's lost because it's has to fly over and it gets ground up. But if you want to buy like the highest grade gyokuro that you can and then grind your own matcha, that's fun too. Let's see. Is it normal to feel emotionally flat more than usual? What can I do to feel more lively? I mean, yeah, it's normal. People tend to go through waves. I mean, I would honestly just forget about it and move on. Not worry about it, because that just will probably make it worse. Also, if you miss the first 20 minutes of my first live stream, because I was doing a live stream earlier and then it froze up, so then I had to start this one over again. I would look at that one, because I talked quite a lot about those types of things in terms of attitude and mindset and approach. So I would check that out. The recording should be up almost probably by now, or at least a little bit later tonight. Got any esoteric beard care tips? No, I'm afraid not. I literally don't do anything to my beard. I just trim it occasionally, which apparently I don't trim it enough because it always grows in. I'm always looking scruffy on the internet, but that's pretty much it. Tips for scalloped tongue. Scalloped tongue is probably some serious spleen and liver issues according to tongue diagnosis of Chinese medicine, but I could be wrong because I don't necessarily totally, I think I know what you mean by scalloped tongue, but it's not fresh in my memory. So perhaps I would, get some acupuncture and get someone to help sort out your organs. How long should I steep white tea leaves? Kind of just depends. How are you brewing it? Is it a cast iron pot? Is it a coffee mug? Is it a gaiwan? Is it a yixing pot? I don't know. And then what is the quality basis of the white tea? No clue. So basically just steep it less than you think. And if it's too weak, steep it longer. If you drink it and it's bitter or too astringent and it makes your mouth or stomach hurt, then steep it less. And that's kind of how you know. It's like too weak, too strong, and then you just find somewhere in the middle that makes sense. And then also the temperature of the water. If the water's hotter, steep it less. If it's cooler, you can steep it more. So it's these variables you have to play with and eventually adapt to your own palate. Because whenever I brew tea, I never keep any time. I never keep track or pay attention. It's just by feel and by basis according to these variables. The tea, the pot, the water, the strength, etc. How many times I've steeped it. Those are all things I take into account. Matcha smoothie at Jamba Juice surprisingly uplifted my mood. Yeah, definitely. It can sort of clear out your head. Definitely. What would you do to manage dandruff? Seems like you could get like a shampoo for that or something, but I don't know. I got this silicone brush thingy that I use in the shower. It scrubs my head, and supposedly that's supposed to help with dandruff. But it also just feels really good and makes your hair kind of feel thicker and fuller. And it just feels nice to massage your scalp and stimulate your blood and your hair in the shower. So maybe look up one of those little silicone scalp scrubber things. I think I got it was like $15. It was some drop ship business that they're running, and I saw the ad on Facebook, and I had to buy it because the ad was so good. But I'll probably wrap this up in a few minutes because you could also just actually start doing some acupuncture and try to ascertain the underlying imbalance as well, just to see the root cause. But I'll probably have to get off in a minute because I need to eat dinner before it gets too late. Gotta go eat some more soup and chill out. So, but I definitely recommend watching the first the first part of the stream before YouTube froze, because there should be a video that's on there that's like 20 or 30 minutes, and then it froze, so I had to stop and then start this one again. It's kind of annoying. It's like maybe the second or third time it's happened. So I'm not sure what the glitch is with YouTube. Let's see. I'm sort of fascinated with the response of Alan Watts. I read a lot of his work and I felt like it resonated with me. I wasn't one of those people who listen to short snippets with corny music. Well, usually if something resonates, that's a good gauge that it's wrong, oftentimes. Like if you hear a spiritual teaching and you're like, oh, that just really resonates, then it basically just means it's probably more of what you already are doing. But that's where you have to have discernment, and it's not always the case, because sometimes it's like that is the right thing in the sense that it's a stepping stone or perhaps a good direction to go in. Because right and wrong is one thing, true and false is another thing. Because ultimately, in a lot of ways, the truth is pretty useless. And it's pretty, just useless and not helpful. And sometimes actually being wrong is more effective for learning and growing, and something that's not that true is actually more effective for learning and growing, because it's understanding a progression. Because it's just with anything in life, whatever you start doing, you never start doing correctly. You never get it right. And if you do it immediately and you get it right, you're probably wrong, or you're probably lying to yourself or fooling yourself, or maybe just gifted, talented, special, unique, whatever. But those are a bit more rare. And it's just with anything, you do it, and then eventually over time you realize, oh wait, I was really wrong about all this stuff, and now I need to correct those things so I can keep growing and get better at this. So in many ways, you have to be willing to admit your error, admit your capacity to be incorrect, so that you can learn to be more correct. That's ultimately what it comes down to, which is why people will not grow. They'll stagnate and they'll glass ceiling very quickly, because they don't have the self-worth or the fortitude to admit their own error, to admit their own incorrection. And again, not in a self-flagellating, beating themselves up, woe is me, I'm a piece of shit, self-hating type of way. That's something very different. This is something that's a bit more functional, tangible, relatable. It's just like if you're learning to like play a song on an instrument. It's a process of refinement. Like if you're let's say you're learning to play guitar, and you play guitar for 2 years, and you practice like 10 minutes a day. Okay, so you're at whatever level you're at. Then you learn this song. But then let's say it's another 2 years later. Hopefully, your skills have grown so that when you go back and play that song, you realize, oh, I was making all of these errors and all these little details that I didn't notice before, but now I have a deeper understanding, so I can see my errors and I can correct them, and now I can operate at a higher level. But if you're not willing to actually do that, then you don't ever actually get better. You kind of just stay the same and don't grow. So it's kind of an odd thing, but in my mind, it's just basically, it also just kind of depends. Like, you know, if you like when you're in kindergarten, what you learn is technically wrong. It's technically not correct, but you have to learn it. Meaning, compared to what you learn in high school, or let's say a senior in college, they're very different things. So if you're a senior in high school and you're trying to operate at a kindergarten level, that's wrong. If you flip them, that's also wrong. But that doesn't mean it's not useful and it's not a part of the process, but it is also wrong. And then further on down the line, what you're doing in high school versus, let's say, you try to go to a graduate level program, if you try to twist those wires, it's probably going to be wrong. So it's not wrong in the sense, I guess those are like loaded words, and sometimes people don't really like them. They can't understand the more functional aspect of it. It's just understanding that process and that growth pattern. And then it's just kind of built in and obvious. And then if you want to grow, at a certain point, you have to grow out of something and grow into something else. Perhaps that's a more positive way to put it. It's not to say that it's good or bad, right or wrong, but relatively speaking, from here, this is wrong, but you had to go through here to get to here. So it's really that. And it also just kind of depends. Like I think Alan Watts is completely incorrect about everything he said about all of the Eastern traditions, because I've dedicated my life basically in many ways to actually going deep in these traditions and in the most authentic, legitimate way that I possibly can. So relative to whatever my situation is, my skill level, my connection level, all these things, it's relative. And so that means knowing people who actually have authentic skill and understanding and knowledge and training in these traditions. So then actually spending time with them, and then subsequently also training a shitload over 5 years and studying and moving through a process, then I can look back and see exactly where he's coming from, what's informing it, what his basis is, And from this perspective of trying to be inside the actual tradition, what he's saying is completely incorrect and has no basis, no weight, no substance, no foundation. What it is a white dude trying to rationalize and put a bunch of shit that doesn't fit into his box, but he makes it fit into his box because that's what he did. That's what basically everyone of his generation did, and that's what people are still doing. Which is why I'm saying if something resonates, usually means you don't actually understand it. It just resonates because you're like, your right brain is drawing connections. That's pretty much all it is. And the way Alan Watts portrayed those traditions is incorrect, and I think it's actually a disservice and is actually really disrespectful to those traditions. But that's ultimately an irrelevant, useless thing because unless you're someone who's going to go deep into any of these things, then it just doesn't matter. It's kind of irrelevant to 99% of people. It doesn't make any difference. But it does to me because I'm in a small percentage of people trying to do something in that realm. That's why I will mostly always not see any value or weight or substance in any of these people. In actuality, it just created all of that pre-existing knowledge actually held me back. In some ways, it gave me a little bit of confidence and familiarity to like jump in. But then after a very short period of time, I realized actually everything I know is wrong and all of this stuff is holding me back. And my fixation on thinking that this shit is correct is keeping me from growing and actually learning and developing anything. So that was a difficult process, but then I eventually learned like, oh, this is just what has to happen. But then I would see other people who would run to the same process, but would not make the decision to grow out of it, and then subsequently would not grow or develop or move along. So it's kind of just something that's built into life and part of being a human being. If your interest is actually growing or changing or these things. So it kind of depends. And I also fully understand and admit that my perspective is oftentimes pretty irrelevant and pretty niche for quite a lot of people because my goals and my interests are very specific, and not a lot of people might have those same goals. So then what I say is not really relevant because they're not trying to get to where I'm trying to get to, etc. So, I mean, if it's entertaining and you like it, then sure, but relative to what the traditions actually are, it's completely incorrect. It's like nothing to do with it. And it just kind of does a, yeah. But anyways, that's enough on that subject. Can acupuncture be harmful / imbalancing if you're seeing an unskilled practitioner? I mean, basically, if you want to understand the function of Chinese medicine school in America, it is ultimately to keep people from hurting people. It's not let's make you great, let's make you potent, let's make you effective. It's let's make you safe. Let's make sure you don't hurt anyone. That's mostly what it's for. So generally, most people are just going to be weak or impotent. They're not necessarily going to be harmful or do damage. But again, it also just depends on the skill of the practitioner, as with any modality or really anything in life like that. Let's see. Tea's almost done, by the way. Yeah, I'll be shipping them out to my fulfillment center probably tomorrow or day after at the latest, but they're all bagged up, they're all ready to go, and I've already been selling some. People have been emailing and selling it before it's even up on the website. So yeah, it'll be en route, and then I just gotta get the page up and everything, but I'll have 3 teas ready to go on the website. So one of them will be very limited run, and I'll probably never have it again, because it is a 90s sinking shung, but it's a cake. So I had to break up 4 cakes by hand into 1-ounce units, which is a huge pain in the ass because these cakes are pretty tight, and it just created a lot of waste. And so I'm not going to do that again. So I'm basically going to have I think I only have 30 bags of this tea left. I have 30 ounces of it left because I sold some already. And then once those 30 ounces are gone, that's the end of that tea. because I don't want to break up the cake anymore. But so definitely jump on that when you can. I may sell whole cakes of it at a later date, but it'll be probably like $300 a cake or something for 357 grams. Just actually an insane price for what it is. But the other ones will be reliable, much easier to supply and deal with. And I'll be adding other ones and new ones on a somewhat regular basis. So anyways, I think I'm going to wrap this up now. I've been on here for like 90 minutes. And definitely, if you did not see the first 20, 30 minutes of the other video, I highly recommend that, because that was the whole point of the stream, and that was the whole point of kind of what I was talking about. But otherwise, it's been cool answering your questions and chatting it up and doing the live stream. But I got to get off here before it gets too late so I can eat some dinner. Definitely start thinking of more questions, because I'm going to be doing live streams more regularly. So get your wheels turning, get some questions, because I do answer pretty much all of them on here. And then sometimes I'll do follow-up videos based on the question, where I'll do a whole thing just on whatever that question was. Case in point, the meditation video that I posted, I think yesterday. So if you haven't watched that meditation video, I recommend it, because I broke down things in a bit more detail and specificity. So yeah, thanks again for tuning in. And again, check out HyperionHerbs.com. I was brewing up in this one some gynostemma and the honey chrysanthemums, which is good, super delicious. The gynostemma will be back in stock probably tomorrow or Wednesday at the latest. And be on the lookout for more new products. So yeah, keep the questions coming, the subjects, topics coming. And I will be cranking out videos on a regular basis, both on YouTube and on Instagram. So definitely follow Hyperion Herbs on Instagram as well. And